Dave, what are you doing here?
Hey, watching these guys on the stream would be crazy. I love this intro.
Oh my gosh. Who even are these people?
I don't know, they're crazy though.
Hello and welcome to Talk Heathen. I am Bianca. With me today is Dave Warnock. I'm super excited. This is season 5, episode 6. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to see you, man. Good to be back. I remember the first time we did that intro and Eric had me come slide in like I'm following.
Oh, yeah, you gotta like jump in.
Yeah, like it was something from a 70s car show, you know, it was crazy.
Oh my gosh. So I'm excited because you've been on Talk Heathen before and you're a ACA favorite, but we've never hosted together. So
I know. I'm excited too because I really don't like Eric that much, but I'm really happy to be on with you.
Oh my gosh.
No, I love Eric.
We all love Eric.
Eric's wonderful. I know.
Oh my gosh. So we are waiting for some callers and I'm going to plug the number right now because if you call us now, chances are you're going to have a pretty good long chunk of time to talk to us because we're a little bit slow. So call us at 512-991-9242 or you can call us toll free anywhere in the world from tiny.cc/callth. Our call screeners will put you through and we'll have some great conversations. While we're waiting for people to call in though, Dave, I would love to hear a little bit about who you are, what you do, just in case there are some poor folks out there who don't know who you are yet.
These poor folks. Yeah, I'm Dave Warnock. I do a thing called Dying Out Loud. If you don't know what that is, it's me talking about death and life as an atheist. I used to be an evangelical Christian and was a pastor for many of those years. For about 36, 37 years, I lived in that world. And then about 10 years ago, I came to the conclusion that all that was not true. And for the most part after that, I just was minding my own business. I was actually an insurance agent and was living a life as a heathen, talking as a heathen. And then I got diagnosed a couple of years ago, almost 2 years exactly. February 26th of 2019, I was diagnosed with ALS, which is a terminal disease. They give you 3 to 5 years to live after you're diagnosed. And so I thought, I don't really have a lot of time. So what do I want to do with that time? And so what I began to do at that point is to go on shows like this and travel, speak at secular communities. This was all before COVID stopped the world. But I was doing a lot of traveling and speaking at Oasis and Sunday assemblies and free thought groups and was loving that. And then COVID shut all that down. But I just began to talk about the difference between my worldviews as a Christian and as an atheist when you look at a terminal disease and you're facing death and you begin to, so I called it Dying Out Loud. And it really was became more talking about living out loud and what you do with your life and making the most of your days and grabbing the moments and those kind of things. And it really became something that I never expected. It just became this thing that seemed to get a lot of attention and inspire a lot of people who maybe were going through difficult things. I've had people send me messages that tell me I've helped them deal with their fear of death and those kind of things. So it's been a wild couple of years and a very gratifying experience to get to do this sort of thing, even though I would never wish that I'd gotten ALS. The fact is, if I had not gotten ALS, I probably wouldn't be doing these sort of things. So it kind of flipped everything around in a way that I was not expecting.
Well, you're changing the world, man.
I don't know about that, but I'm just happy to know that there are people out there that somehow find some inspiration and hope in what I'm talking about. And so that means a lot to me. It really does.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for spending some of that time with us today. I'm excited to get to calls. But before we do that, I do want to give out a couple of announcements per the usual. Talk Heathen is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. That means we run on donations, your donations. If you are interested in what we do, if you want to help us to continue to support awesome people like Dave, bringing them on, giving them this platform, consider donating. And you can do that a couple of ways. If you are on YouTube, you can actually donate via this app, this platform, and we will get 100% of the proceeds there because we are a nonprofit. So we prefer that. But also, you can donate via Patreon. And 2/3 of the way through the episode, we always shout out those top 5 patrons. And hey, guys, we might even throw in someone who's not a top 5 patron, just, to mix things up a little bit. And then, as always, nonprofits are on at 3 p.m. So be sure to check that show out between this and AXP. Don't need to plug AXP. Y'all know about AXP. And if we wrap up by 2:45, so if we wrap up about 15 minutes early, what we'll do is we'll hop over to the Discord and continue a conversation there. So if you're still on the line and you want to continue to talk with us, or if you've watched the show and want to ask us questions, that's a great place to meet up afterwards. It's kind of our makeshift after the show community gathering that we used to do over at the ACA building. So we really value that. All right. I think we have a couple of calls. I'm ready to get going. How are you feeling?
Let's go.
All right. Let's talk to Isaiah. Isaiah, welcome to the show. How can we help you today?
Hello. Thank you. Great to be here. And shout out to my hometown, Austin there.
All right.
Way far away over here in Hawaii. Yeah.
Okay. Not jealous at all. What's going
on? My particular field of interest and kind of curiosity inquiry is looking at the legends of God like a telephone game. Mm-hmm. So all these stories and religions and things that we have here aren't necessarily their first iteration, and things change over time. And in my research, just looking around through them and kind of looking deeper in them, I'm finding a lot of commonalities to the point where I think there was a more original story that has spawned a lot of these.
Interesting.
So we look at God, we look at God anthropomorphically. Mostly, like both religion and atheists. The atheists against this personal, well, not against, but unconvinced of the personal God and things like that. And so I didn't really find a lot of functionality in the subjective aspect of considering God. I wanted to know how the universe worked, and if there is a God, what it actually is, how it actually does things or is responsible for the universe and things like that. So that's the track I've gone down.
Okay.
And, just boiling down all these legends, like I go further back. The story of Nun is this oceanic, infinite God existence, and that it makes a bubble. And inside that bubble is the only place that creation can happen, because otherwise it's just overwhelmed with this watery existence. Similarly with Tiamat in Babylon, a watery oceanic goddess, her body was cut in half, and the heavens and the earth were made out of her body parts. And that's another major, major theme, that there's some primordial original being that gets split apart, and those parts become all of creation.
Well, yeah, you would imagine that would be the assumption, because before, the Indo-Europe tribes kind of came down to the Fertile Crescent, most of the understanding of biology and how generations formed was matrilineal, right? They assumed that women just spontaneously started giving birth to kids, and that kind of gave that sort of, oh, well, clearly if this is how people come to be, that they become their own thing after being part of a woman's body, in this kind of headspace, then of course that must be, on a bigger scale, how the universe came to be. So I think kind of you're on the right track here, because there are those similarities, but it almost sounds to me like what you're doing is assuming that they're coming from somewhere other than us experiencing a common natural phenomenon and then extrapolating it in similar ways.
I think both is happening. Like you have in the legend, you have people who have some kind of godly experience, whether it be an actual revelation or a hallucination or whatever. That is the compelling aspect, that makes them write or talk or share what they've done. I've actually had a few of those, but that's not the track I actually talk about. What I get to is I've worked on a comprehensive theory of how the universe operates from being unfolded from an infinite existence. So the modern stories are intelligent design, like God just willy-nilly creation into existence because he's got a super smart brain and can just think all these things up. Mm-hmm. What I've found to be much more simple, far less special pleading, and actually results in predictive geometry of how the universe works is inherent design. In other words, it was what we see here, all these forces that appear to be finely tuned, not for life, but for atoms and the stability of the universe as a whole, were unfolded from a previous unity. And that unity in an infinite state would be what I term God, because
so
an infinite absolute, if you want to think of the, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my question, I guess, Isaiah, because this sounds like almost like a pantheistic approach to things, right? Like the universe is what you call God, and you view it in that kind of way, and that must be where all these stories come from. And my question for everyone who kind of comes to me with this set of claims, and there are quite a few of them, is why use the word God? What about that word or that concept helps you at all? Because to me, I'm happy to say, hey, that sounds like it could have been a thing, maybe. I mean, run it by some scientists who study this, but like, okay, why would we make that jump from universe was infinite to God?
Yeah, that was going to be my question too, V.
Great question.
I'm always curious why people, and not just you, Isaiah. First of all, Isaiah, V and I are both angry at you because you live in Hawaii and we don't. So let's get that out of the way.
Yeah.
So if you see some anger here, it's not about you personally. It's just we're jealous as hell.
I completely empathize.
Yeah, you should. It's cold over here, bro. I've always been curious why people, when they're trying to identify origins and how things started and what things began from, and all those questions that honestly we just have more questions than answers as humans so far, and we're still learning. But but when we, like V said, I'm always curious why people feel the need to attach all of that to this God label. Like it's almost like we feel like there has to be a God somewhere, so we have to identify who or what this God is. And so whenever we're coming up with some answers to the questions that we have, we always drag it back to, and that's who God must be. Mm-hmm. And I'm like V, I'm thinking, why do we feel that that's a default position that we have to go to? And I'm not saying you're doing that, but you did use the term God, and so I think it did prompt V and I both to go, wait, what? Why?
Yes. Yeah. Well, a couple of different perspectives I take on that. One, it's still in the realm of pseudo history, that there was a previous age of mankind that we basically were a worldwide civilization. We had a high-tech capability, maybe not this type of technology we have. But anyway, there was a massive cataclysm about 13,000 years ago. The Earth got bombarded by cometary fragments, and that's what ended the last ice age. So, to wrap all this together, the God stories are what would pass downstream through time in primitive or cultures that have been knocked way back, almost basically to the Stone Age, to have to restart. So these stories, like the God and the Goddess and how things happen, is really important to the storytelling age, to our tribal nature, to make sense of the reality around us in shorthand form. These are like analogous forms of what the actual tech, how the universe actually works, is abbreviated down to. So that's one way.
So you think that there was, wait, let me see if I can get this straight, because this is a lot of information. And I mean, I'm willing to follow you down this rabbit hole, but I need to clarify. So you're saying that there was a previous age in which we were more advanced and connected as a civilization, and in order to preserve that information, we constructed God myths about how the universe works, and it's kind of like code?
That's one of the layers, one of the kaleidoscope lenses that I look.
I mean, this sounds like an awesome Dan Brown novel, but
or a QAnon conspiracy.
I would read the fuck out of this book, or for sure. But
well, I do see.
But that would be.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That as far as legends are concerned, this would be the Zep Tepi that the Egyptians refer to, because they considered themselves, our modern Egyptians considered themselves a legacy culture of a far greater culture before them, when the gods walked the earth and they had all these special powers and equipment and things like that. And then similarly with the Mahabharata, the Vedas talk about the times of the gods are walking around the earth and doing amazing things, shooting beam weaponry and flying cities and things like that. So, and a lot of that would be underwater, under 400 feet of water, in fact, because at the Younger Dryas events, the oceans have raised 400 feet since then. And
okay. I'm gonna have to cut you off here, Isaiah, because this is again fascinating. I would be happy to talk about this all day. My question remains unanswered, though, which is how does this get back to a God claim? And if what you're saying is God claims are code to talk about the universe in a way that we could understand back then, cool, that's an interesting theory, but that doesn't, to me, make you a theist. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. Totally. Okay. And to go back to your question about pantheism, what I'm talking about is panentheism, which means the universe is within God.
Right.
It is not the total of the unfoldment of God. It is a good way to think about it is like if God is an ocean of light, an infinite ocean of liquid light, then universes are finite rainbow void bubbles that have been yanked open. And all
rainbow void bubbles. These are some of my favorite words all put together. You've convinced me.
Rainbow void bubbles.
Okay, so Dave, what are your thoughts here?
Where we can live, breathe, and play with.
Yeah. Isaiah, do you identify as a Christian, or just curious? How would you self-identify?
I'm a quantum heretic. I would get burned at the stake for a lot of things that I believe in, say, for modern Christianity. But there's a form in my practice that is reminiscent of Christianity. It's that of adoption, that we are all inherently sons and daughters of whatever God there is. And we are learning to live with ourselves and our powers forever, so that we become more able to handle greater responsibility. We are God's in embryo, basically. Yeah. So the whole Christ myth is that he came down to show us how to reclaim or re-earn our inheritance. That's my perspective on it.
Well, as V said, I'm gonna kind of go back to where V was coming from too, because these things are interesting to talk about. But to me, it still sounds like you are coming from a place where you need there to be a God. And so you're needing to redefine or to define for yourself who and what that God is. And I think what V and I are trying to say, and what I personally feel, is that we can discard those notions of there need to be a God. I think, like you were talking about back in the day when ancient civilizations didn't understand how the world works, and they didn't know what thunder and lightning was, for instance, they created gods to answer those questions for themselves. But as we've evolved and as we've gotten a little smarter and as we've learned some things scientifically, we don't need that anymore. And we can say, I don't need a God. I don't need there to be a God. I don't need to try to figure out who and what God is. To me, I go back to there's a passage of scripture that in Corinthians that says, in 1 Corinthians, as our former president would say, that says, when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. And that I think illustrates what we can do with ancient notions when we were children and we thought Santa Claus brought presents down a chimney, and we grow up and realize how far-fetched that is. We don't substitute a fat man, a jolly man in a red suit for some other form of a present giver on Christmas Day. We just discard the notion altogether. And we realize mom and dad bought presents
the man in the red suit.
Exactly. So we land on the need to recreate a God that satisfies the questions that we have. And that's where I think V was talking about, and that's where I come from. I just simply say, there's no need for a God. Let's just figure out how life happened, when life, let's continue to learn about our history, and let's discard this notion of there being a God involved whatsoever.
Yeah, I think for me, that was beautifully put, Dave. Thank you. And yeah, one of my favorite verses as well. My question, Isaiah, is still like, sorry, I keep going back to it. It feels like you're saying that, well, the universe is God, but then you're also saying, no, it's panentheism, which I get is something different. But then you're making a claim about a thing outside of the universe and as actually existing. So that is the claim that I'm interested in. So where did you get that from?
Okay. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty. We can do away with the metaphors. So
absolutely, let's do it.
We'd have to go before the beginning of a universe. So in the Big Bang Theory, you've got this singularity. It's this unified state of matter, energy, space, time, all that stuff. But it's assumed, or further assumed, to be an infinitesimally small dot. But I'm thinking, compared to what? And every time we've been shown that, there's this big black space outside of it that's not supposed to exist. We're not supposed to be seeing it from that perspective. The only valid point of perspective is inside the singularity. So go there. Where is its border? Does it have an outside? No. It's effectively infinite. That's one avenue into this. So thinking of before this bubble void universe appears is this infinite singularity. It has no external border. So that state is greater than any other possible state ever.
I'm just getting a kick out of watching V's face right now.
I'm trying to find where I'm trying to, like, I thought we said no more metaphors, Isaiah. That seems like mostly metaphor.
Okay, I won't go to metaphor.
Because here's the thing.
Okay.
There is a common understanding of how the Big Bang happened and worked that is colloquially talked about, right? Came from nothing, infinitesimally small in a larger space of nothing. That's actually not accurate. So my hope here is that we can avoid metaphors that rely on, overly simplified or reductionist understandings of something that is infinitely more complex than I think either of us would understand. So, okay, no metaphor. We what is God? What are we a part of? What kind of embryos are we? Space-time rainbow bubble embryos? Help.
We're back to the rainbow bubbles, aren't we?
We're never getting away from the rainbow bubbles. Those are just going to be a thing now.
Yeah. Well, we are the rainbow bubbles. So long story short is in this infinite absolute expanse, this singularity that has no external border, a wavefront travels through it and leaves bubbles in its wake by acoustic cavitation. Okay? It moves, it lowers the pressure. These bubbles are yanked open from the outside in, inside out. It's Bernoulli's principle. It's fluid dynamics. If you have a moving fluid, it is at lower pressure than a fluid at rest. And so that's how you get these bubbles popping open in this infinite expanse, this infinite singularity. And even better, the simplest possible arrangement of this. Simple. Okay. And we're going to get into mathematics. We're going to get right into gravity and dark energy. Okay.
Well, maybe on another call. I'm thinking that we're gonna probably need to move on.
Yeah, this rabbit hole has got several tunnels in it.
I feel like Alice. I'm like very slowly falling down a very
I just want to know which of these bubbles Adam and Eve came out of is what I'm thinking. I don't know where we go from here. But
Isaiah, this is fascinating. Thank you for calling in. You certainly are presenting some new stuff that we have not heard on Talk Heathen before, and that's difficult to do. So hat off to you.
We will be dreaming about rainbow bubbles.
I appreciate
this is going to be a thing. So
you
appreciate
are the rainbow bubbles.
Thank you, Isaiah.
Aloha.
I like it.
Aloha. Okay, my head is swimming.
I know. Well, it's fluid dynamics, Dave.
Well, of course, everyone knows that. And angels had sex with demons, and that's where the evil left-wing cabal is coming from.
Of course.
No, I've learned a few things about QAnon in the last more than I ever wanted to know. Hey, if you like that verse, you're going to love the title of my book.
Oh yeah.
But when I became a man. So yes, I'm plugging my book. So here we go.
Oh, absolutely. That is absolutely acceptable here. All right. We are going to hopefully come back down to earth a little bit and talk to some atheists. But honestly, like, we're making fun. Isaiah, man, that was awesome. That was that was refreshing.
He's obviously thought about this a lot, and he sounds like a very intelligent young man. So old man, I don't know what he is. But a lot of stuff that I hadn't considered lately.
Yep. That's one way to put it. All right, let's talk to John in California. John, you're on the air with V and Dave. How can we help you today?
Hi, V. Hi, Dave. Hey,
John.
I have a question. So, I married my wife about 10 years ago, and I was raised in a church, the Church of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I about 5 years ago, I started looking at it and felt no good reason to believe anymore, and deconverted into an atheist. My wife, however, when she married me, saw me as, I was raised and born in the church, and I was, I was a pretty Bible thumping person. And she wasn't, however. She was and still is very spiritual, tarot cards sort of deal. Everything happens for a reason. And I feel like I catfished her a little bit. She mentioned the other day that, like, I'm no longer the person that she married sort of deal. I don't have the same beliefs as I do. So I was wondering if you had anything to say to that, or how to make the so we have one child as well. Kind of asking these questions. I have parents that are still they're still Christian, and they talk about God, and he's 6 years old, and he looked at him and said, "I don't believe in God," sort of deal. And because we talk about those things, those are just something that people, everyone has their beliefs, and whether or not he sees it or has good evidence for it, that's what we kind of that's what we look for. I want him to be a critical thinker. So
damn, there's a lot to unpack here. First request for you though, John, do you have the show on in the background by any chance?
I do not.
Okay, we're getting a little bit of an echo, but it seems to be fine now. So we'll just cross our fingers and hope. So thank you for checking. I know I've got thoughts on this, Dave. Though I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, that's a tough one, John. I experience much of the same. I'll just kind of refer to my experience with that, because I was into this a lot longer than you were. I was an evangelical Christian for 3.5 decades, and married my wife, had kids in it, and lived in that culture for the better part of my adult life. And when I deconstructed about 10 years ago and realized I no longer believed it, my wife remained a Christian, and my 2 of my 3 kids did, as well as my brother, sister, mom, the whole thing. I was clearly the black sheep. And it was tough, because I stayed married in that scenario for another 4 or 5 or 6 years as an atheist living with a Christian. And it became more and more difficult and more problematic for me. She was content to remain in the marriage with me. I was not content to stay married to someone who continued to embrace things that I had more and more problems with. The very things that you're talking about, how we teach kids, or how we indoctrinate kids at a young age with things that are just not true. We don't teach them how to think. We teach them what to think. we consider a vast majority of the world population to be wrong and destined for hell. All those, I could go on and on about evangelicalism and the problems I have with it. So for me to stay married in that scenario was not going to be sustainable for me. And so I ended the marriage, and I knew that it would cause a lot of pain and heartache on a lot of people. But for me personally, it was the only thing that I could do to be honest and authentic with myself. And I'm not saying that's what you should do by any means, but I completely understand the difficult position that you're now in. And like you said, it wasn't your wife that changed, it was you. And the same for me. I would push back against the idea that you catfished her. I know you were saying it a little bit in jest, but the reality is you were doing the best you could at the time. And you were honest about your thoughts and beliefs and who you were. You didn't come into it with any sense of deception or anything other than this is who I am. And then you changed. And I want to say, first of all, that takes courage to admit you were wrong about something and to say, wait a minute, this isn't adding up for me and I'm going to have to reassess this. That's not a small thing. And you should understand that for you to be able to do that, even though it's going to cost you a lot, socially and emotionally and relationally, it still was for you at that time the right thing to do. So do not beat yourself up about that. You were doing the best you could do. And like Maya, go ahead.
One thing I'm a little lucky about is even when I was Christian, I didn't really feel that teaching kids at a young age. And I always, I thought about raising my son and how if it was actually true that there'd be no reason to have to teach him as a baby that these are those things that, when he gets to be a grown adult and have his own, his own morality, his own, his own view of the world. If it is true, then he'll figure out what is true.
Exactly.
So indoctrinating him was never something, and luckily my wife doesn't feel like we should be indoctrinating him on anything.
Exactly.
So
good.
I am lucky in that aspect.
That sounds.
What are your thoughts, V?
Well, honestly, anything that I say is probably going to pale in comparison, Dave. That was beautifully put. I think I would also kind of focus in on that catfish concept and the idea that you're not the same person you were when I married you. Of course you're not, right? That's part of the deal, right? The reason that, or one of the reasons that people get married is to say, hey, I know you're going to change and I'm here for it. Right? I acknowledge that you are going to shift as a human and grow and find new things to be excited about. And I want to be there. And that's wonderful. And we talk about this a lot on my other show, Secular Sexuality, in ways around, sexual identity or gender identity or relationship styles. Sometimes people will get into relationships and realize, oh, wait, I'm someone different now. And this could be a problem for the relationship. And what we tell people in these instances are, you know what, you need to be honest, you need to be true to yourself and make sure you aren't hiding who you are to make someone else comfortable, because that's just going to fester, right? That's not something that's sustainable for either person. And try and work it out if you feel that that's the direction you want to go. And it's going to be hard, right? It's not going to be an easy thing. But if you are both dedicated to this idea of sticking it out, then it's worth that fight. So I would say definitely do not guilt yourself for changing, whether, that's something that is being told to you or you're telling yourself. It's not helpful because everybody does that all the time. And then the next step, of course, is just now what, right? Is this something that is a deal breaker? And if so, how do you navigate that, And if it's not a deal breaker, then awesome. You guys get new conversations to have. You guys get a new perspective to share and to, play off of each other. So it's not always a bad thing by any means. In fact, often it can reinvigorate and uncover a lot of extra stuff that might not have been said otherwise. So I don't know. I guess my last question for you is, do you want to stick this out? And does your wife?
Well, I know I do. And the reason why I feel catfished is because of her comment of me not being the same person that she married. And yeah, it has kind of driven different conversations. I think she feels like I'm a lot more cynical now because I question a lot more of, things that are people see but aren't proven.
Mm-hmm.
I actually ask for evidence when it comes to certain claims.
Imagine that.
Yeah, of course. there's a crazy creature in our kitchen that's, a black shadow. It was just, I took that as like, yeah, those things, spirits and demons and those things are real. And now it's like, I want more evidence, and it is very much, in her eyes seems a bit more cynical.
Yeah, and I can see that. I think I'm going to pull a page from Eric's book for a minute, not the actual book of Eric, because he'd be mad at me if I did that. And say a lot of the time when people get out of a religious mindset or a spiritual mindset, it sounds like in this case, and start questioning things and start moving in a new direction, the person who is still where they were originally, the person in the religion and that spiritual mindset, might see that as something against them, right? I don't want to be involved with you anymore, or I think that you're stupid, or I think that you don't have the necessary brain power or willpower to leave, right? And that's certainly not something that it sounds like you're saying, but that can often be what other people hear because of the negative stereotype around skeptics and around atheism. So one thing that you might want to consider doing is, if your questions feel like attacks and you're not intending that, then maybe actually talking about that and saying, hey, when I ask you this question, how do you know? That's not me saying you're wrong. That's not me saying that I think you're stupid. This is me saying, hey, let's talk about this, right? I have questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've been able to do that? Do you feel like you've been able to do that with her, John, in a way that's
argument?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it opens up to going, oh yeah, maybe we should think about that a little bit more, see what that is, but it's just constantly being surrounded, and she's surrounded by people who are like-minded as well, who, have tarot cards, and, they see spirits and demons, and everyone has an aura sort of deal. And, and so I kind of have to find myself sitting alone going, oh, all right, yeah, can I see some proof? Like, is there anything you can tell me that is evidence for it? And, I just get kind of shoved in a corner going, oh, okay, well, he's just, he's skeptic.
Just put him. Yeah, we don't need to worry about that. Yeah, I think one last thing to maybe suggest here is, it sounds like, and of course it's hard with COVID, right? It's hard with everything shut down, but it sounds like you might need friends who are skeptical, right? You might need friends to build up that side of things. So it feels very lopsided right now. If it's your wife and your entire social circle that is talking in this way, of course you're going to feel like the odd man out. Of course there's going to be that extra set of tension. But if what you're worried about right now is maintaining that relationship with your wife, then a good next step could be building a social network and a structure for you, a community that you can go to and you can find solace in, so that it doesn't have to be you pitted against everyone else in her life. You can have your separate groups, your separate conversations, and hopefully come back together and continue these important conversations about what is real and what she believes and why.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys find some common ground and work it through. And main thing is, I think what V and I would both say to you is, be true to yourself, and make sure you're in a situation where you can be your best authentic self and not have to compromise that to placate someone else. And if you can do that, and you feel like you're grounded in that, and she's comfortable with that, and you guys can maintain a relationship with these separate ideologies, then all the power to you. That's hard to do, but it can be done. And I know people who've done it. So
yeah, me too.
yeah, hopefully that'll be the case.
We'll end up sticking it out. I think if anything, it'll give the boy a little bit more well-roundedness when it comes to like there's certain beliefs, and then criticize those beliefs if they're not warranted in evidence. And Daddy believes one thing or doesn't believe one thing, and Mama believes the other. Mm-hmm. So
make up your own mind, right?
Yeah.
And just critical thinking. You're on the right track there. That's well done.
Absolutely. Thank you for calling in, John. I really hope we were able to help out a little bit. And if you are looking for that community, I suggest going to our Facebook page or our Discord. We have some really amazing groups of people there, many of whom have been through similar struggles. They're the first person in their family to deconvert. And they're kind of wondering what to do next. So you will find some really awesome community there as well.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you both. Enjoy your day.
Thanks, John.
Absolutely. You too. Oh, that's rough.
That is tough. I've seen it. You've seen it too. I've seen it so many times, and every situation's different, and there's no blanket answer to how to deal with these things. It's just tough. And when one person, I mean, the reality is, and you touched on it, people change, and we should be changing. If we're not changing, we're not growing. And ideally, in a relationship, people change in sync with each other, and you're able to maintain that relationship as you go through life. But oftentimes you don't change in the same way, and it's not anybody's fault. That's the thing we got to help people see. It's not your fault that you changed your mind about some things. It's not that it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make the other person bad for not changing. So it just happens. And so how do we navigate that? How do we deal with that? And every situation's different, but man, it can be tough. It can be tough. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's been my experience. Not romantically, thankfully. That would be awkward. But in my family, my family is 50 plus people, like extended family, all of whom are very close, and I'm the only atheist, or the only out atheist, at least. So it can be. Yep, there you go. Solidarity. It can be very isolating, and those extra communities that you build on your own, those found families, are important so that you can build that there and then take that strength to these conversations with people who would disagree with you.
Yeah, it's gotten easier to find that community now than it was 10 years ago when I came out.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's Recovering from Religion. We just did the fundraiser for them the other day. And so, yeah, it's out there. You just got to search for it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk with David in California. We've got lots of Californians on the line today.
California and Hawaii, they're just rubbing it in our face, aren't they?
I know. David, welcome to the show. You're on the air with V and Dave.
Hey, how are you guys?
Doing good. How can we help you?
I had a quick question. I've been watching the show, and I noticed behind your shoulder, Dave, that you have it looks like a painting in the background. It looks like maybe a stained glass of a saint. And I was just wondering, because I was raised Mormon, but I got out of the faith at a young age. And so I never had a space where I had to had all of the religious iconography where after I deconverted, it was still there. Do you just appreciate it as art, or do you have to change? Would you take stuff out? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to break everything in your home that reminds you of anything religious. It's the law. It's in the law. No, it's in the book. It's in the book of atheism. No, actually, I didn't even think about that. I'm in my partner's house, and I think it's a picture. It's not a saint, because I would have fucking broken it. No, I'm just kidding. It says, "Gather ye rosebuds." It's just a girl with a flower in her face. But I think to answer your question, yeah, I know of people who've kept things around them that remind them, or just they find them to be sentimental or nostalgic or whatever, but they don't attach any religious significance to it. I never was one to do that. I mean, I don't have any of the remnants of my Christian life in my life. I just didn't feel the need to hang on to anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I I guess I wouldn't either. Being raised Mormon, there's a lot of Mormon iconography, like the Jesus with his hands open, like showing his
wounds
in his hands where he was his wounds, and like the very iconic like very white Jesus picture, and there's just certain very iconic images of that like all Mormons have in their house. And, like I think like if you deconvert from that, I at least for me, I would be like, I can't have this stuff in my house anymore. Like, not that like I need to destroy it or whatever, but it's just like I don't want that.
I know people that get triggered by that. It's a reminder of things that were very unpleasant, and they feel the need to purge themselves from all of that. And I get that. Other people, like I said, just kind of go, whatever. What do you think, Dee?
I would say that that's right. I think it is an individual thing. I know people who are atheist but have emotional connections to either gifts that are, religious in nature, or, they love being in churches, or they love, the idea of like church music and Gregorian chants and hymns. So there are certainly things in religion that are beautiful and that a lot of people still find a lot of value in. The only thing would be, there's that other flip side, which is a lot of the time these beautiful things are kind of part and parcel with a lot of anger and a lot of hurt and a lot of abuse. And so sometimes that overweighs it. And then, you can't be around that stuff. So for me personally, I don't really enjoy going into churches very much. It just is kind of triggering for me. It's not something that I find peace or safety in, but I fully respect that there are other atheists who absolutely love it, and that's good for them. I think the goal here is to make sure we're detaching symbols from the ideology, in a sense, or rather that symbols or icons or anything have a moral weight on their own. Mm-hmm. So instead of saying, oh, well, this cross has some kind of intrinsic religious value that is going to influence my life in some way, look at it as what it is, a symbol, right? Oh, this is something. Do I agree with the symbolism? Yes, no, maybe. Do I find that it is aesthetically pleasing and that outweighs my disagreement with the symbolism? Okay, we'll have that conversation. But I think ultimately the goal is to make sure we are taking away that intrinsic power that a lot of religion gives these icons, right? And so just treating them like objects is absolutely fine.
And some of it is works of art. I mean, I could look at the statue of David, Michelangelo's David, and appreciate it as a piece of art and not attach any religious symbolism to it as though, he was some iconic godlike figure. What about you, David? Do you feel have you gotten rid of all your stuff from the past, or how does it feel to you?
So I definitely feel like there are some things that, I could separate the religious value of it, because I am an artist and I love art. And I actually used to have like a kind of old Gothic style of like the Jesus with the crown of thorns, and then also Virgin Mary, and it was just, I really loved the style of art of it. But I just like, I guess I wouldn't want like a sculpture of Jesus. I didn't find that art aesthetically pleasing, so I wouldn't want that. But I definitely understand the art aspect of it, like a beautiful stained glass window. Even if it is religious, religious in nature, like I could see having that. But I and maybe I would have some religious things more tongue in cheek, but
When you first mentioned the thing over my shoulder, I thought, oh shit, what is back there? I didn't even know, and I thought, I hope it's not a saint of some kind.
It's ironic. That's fine.
It kind of reminded me of like a stained glass window in like.
It looks like that. Yeah,
it just got me thinking.
Yeah, no, what's funny to me is, for my own part, and I do have friends who've kept their Bibles from back in the day and those kind of things, and I just didn't feel the need. I didn't go burn them or anything. I think I just threw everything away. But as I've gotten further removed from it, I've found that my attitude has shifted somewhat. And I know people who are severely triggered by certain things that they see or hear. Worship music just makes their skin crawl. Now, I will say this. I was in a place of business a few months ago. I was buying a car, and the car dealership had this worship music playing, that you can identify it immediately. You don't even have to hear the words. You just know the sound.
Mm-hmm.
And it just irritated the shit out of me. And it wasn't because I was triggered. I just thought, I know that they're trying to attract the Christian customers, but I said, you know what? I'm a customer too. And I told the guy, I said, listen, tell your manager that if he's trying to attract the Christian people, yeah, but he's also probably going to drive away some people like me, because I'm not going to buy a car at a place that feels the liberty or the need even to play this kind of stuff to gratuitously cater to the Christian crowd and let everybody know that you're a Christian business, blah, blah, blah. So I let them know that I wasn't happy about that, and not everybody out there agrees with that way of thinking. So it wasn't like it triggered me. I just wanted to let them know that, hey, we're out there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, great conversation, David. I really appreciate you calling in. I'm glad we settled the mystery of what is behind Dave's shoulder.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for calling in.
Yeah. Well, yep. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate everything you guys do, and I look forward to consuming more content. Thank you.
Thank
Sounds
you, David.
Good. Ooh, I've got a little bit of an echo.
Yeah, I'm not hearing it. Maybe I'm causing it. I don't know. Do I need to do something?
I don't know. I'm sure they'll tell us if we need to do anything.
All right.
In the meantime, let's forge ahead, and I'm going to ignore my voice in my own ear.
I'm sorry.
All right, let's talk to Renee, again, from California. Renee in California.
Are you kidding me?
Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Renee.
What can we help you with today?
Okay. Well, I just wanted to talk about what you guys believe in the spiritual realm. What is your take on it, and where do you guys stand?
I don't think it exists. I am unconvinced, but I don't necessarily see it as being the thing that is going to affect my life. So in the same way, like there can be atheists who believe in the spiritual realm, right? Like, because necessarily God does not necessarily equate to a spiritual realm or vice versa. I myself don't find it convincing at all, or at least I have not seen evidence of it. But that's me. Dave, how about you?
I tend to agree. When you say spiritual realm, I'm assuming that means that there's something out there that beyond what we can see and understand and see evidence for. I'm more of a materialist when it comes to that, and if it's not something that I can point to and say, yeah, this makes sense, yeah, this is rational and reasonable, I don't feel the need for there to be a spiritual element to life. I think life is just life. We live, we die, and we go back to the earth, or back to universe or matter or whatever the energy is that we came from. I don't feel the need. When I let go of Christianity, I let go of any need for there to be a God or a deity or a spiritual element to life whatsoever. But that said, like V said, people who feel that there is that there's a spiritual element, that there's something out there beyond ourselves, to me, it's a fairly harmless ideology. It doesn't seek to impose itself upon other people. It's just something individuals hold on to as a matter of comfort or their own personal beliefs. And so I don't find it problematic at all. What about you, Renee? How do you feel?
Okay, well, I mean, I believe in it. I am new coming back to Christianity after falling away from religion for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as your beliefs for creation and everything, are you guys more on the scientific of the Big Bang or evolution or whatever?
Yeah.
Renee,
So,
Renee, you take this. I'm going to refresh per the host, and I'll be right back. They
All
want me to
right.
refresh, and I'll be
I'll
right
jump
back.
in. So, Renee, my thinking here is that while the spiritual realm as its own thing is not necessarily while the spiritual realm is not necessarily an ideology itself and is not necessarily always as harmful as an organized religion, I would say that there are situations where it can actually be quite harmful, especially mediums, people who prey on those that are grieving in order to, pretend that they're talking to, their loved ones and conveying messages. Also, some kinds of fortune telling, some are harmless and fun, but others might actually have negative consequences for people, especially if they take them too seriously and end up making a mistake with their life. So I think my instinct here is the best thing we can do is go with what we know and say, I don't know to everything else. And not necessarily a hard no, I can't believe you believe this, how dare you? But hey, present me with evidence and then I will be convinced of it. But if you can't do that, then I'm going to, not weigh in and say until proven otherwise, I'm not going to assume this thing exists.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to kind of, I don't know if you guys already know this but most of the people that are behind all of our scientific knowledge that we have so far from the 20th century, do you know that they all believe in like the spiritual realm and they all were occultists and practice black magic and worship or practice Luciferian worship?
That's news to me.
Literally.
See, I would need evidence for that particular claim, Renee. Where are you hearing this from?
It's all in the books.
The books, huh? Which
Manly
books?
P. Hall, The Manly P. Hall, Secret Teachings of All Ages. You got ISIS in America from Madame Blavatsky. You got Aleister Crowley. You got Hitler, who was very deep in the occult. The SS, the Black Sun. You got, I can go on.
Wait. So you're giving me examples of people, and I agree that certain of those individuals, like Aleister Crowley, of course, was into, magic, as was Jung, had a lot of, kind of occult leanings, sure. But these are not the people who are making our scientific discoveries. You specifically said people behind science and scientific discovery. So who are you talking about here?
Jung is like one of our main founders for psychology.
Well, a certain form of psychology that has since been integrated into a better understanding of things. So here, Renee, I think the thing we want to make sure we're saying here is, yes, there are certainly people in every field that believe some really out there stuff. And it might or it might not play into their discoveries itself, right? There might be some things that, Freud or Jung have said that actually were directly influenced by, whatever beliefs they held. But the good thing about the scientific method, right, is that we are able to test those things and over the course of time, get rid of those things that are not substantiated. So the fact that one or two of these people may believe a certain thing, really, for me, doesn't impact that final end result because it has passed through so many people at that point and been refined down to as close to a fact as we can get a lot of the time. So I guess my question for you is, apart from, where are you hearing this? Also, like, are you saying that because some of these people had beliefs that we should also have these beliefs? Is that your argument here?
What I'm saying is that because they have these beliefs, and when you worship, obviously, Lucifer, he's the father of lies. So when you influence, starting from the children, you can have the next generation, as said by Aleister Crowley. You start with the children, and you've got the next generation at your will.
Yeah, what churches do.
However you want to raise them, however you want them in the schools, you change all the books. That's why you got Carl Jung doing psychology. You got Nietzsche doing some I know he's in the literal, like, I forgot what he teaches, but it's
Wait, Nietzsche?
a lot to do with, yes.
Nietzsche was a philosopher. He didn't teach kids.
He was part of the, he's in the textbooks. A lot of what they read in little
Like what? Give me a
in
Nietzsche
my
quote from a
stepson.
kid's textbook. I'm curious. I
I
want to
didn't
read this.
I didn't
textbook.
I didn't get that in school.
Yeah. Maybe this because I was
Yeah,
homeschooled
no.
as a Christian, but I have
Well,
never.
I did not know about Tesla. You know, my stepson, who already graduated, he learned about Tesla. I didn't know about Tesla when I was in school. And
Is
this
Tesla
was, 20 years
occult?
back.
Is Tesla demonic?
Yes, Tesla was an occultist too.
So I want to go back to the Satanist. Lucifer is the father of lies. Where does that come from? Where does that idea come from?
Well, that comes from the Bible.
And so, how do we know that there
Lucifer
is
being
even
light bearer.
how do we know that there is
Lucifer
even
being
a
light
Lucifer?
bearer.
Right. How do we know that there's even a Lucifer or a Satan or anything like that?
Well, even if there is or is not, those people still worshipped him, and Luciferian worship is still very active to this day.
Wait.
I mean,
So
the whole world is.
So you're saying that somebody can worship an imaginary being that doesn't exist, and that wouldn't that completely negate any effects of the worship? Like, who cares if I'm worshiping something that doesn't exist and can't impact the reality?
Okay, but they can impact a whole generation without you, whether you believe it or not.
Okay, what is the goal here? What is the goal ultimately impacting these kids? Because I know why religion does it, because they can't get actual adult converts most of the time until QAnon happened. But why are they doing this? Why do they want the kids?
Okay, so I mean, if you go back just from the beginning of the 1900s, you see the fall from religious beliefs.
Do we?
Okay, you know.
The fall. What do you mean? You see the fall
there's
from?
That's the fall. I mean, you
mean the Enlightenment?
Who were raised in Christian families more in a religious household. They were, the girls weren't allowed to show much skin. They were more respectful, more just.
So it's not real religion.
That's like compared to the kids now.
Yeah.
Wait, so you're saying that before the 1900s, women couldn't show as much skin, and because that's not the case anymore, Satan is in the schools?
No. Wow, you're making no.
Okay, explain it to me. Where am I going wrong?
I'm saying from the starting of the 1900s, families were more of godly. They read the Bible. They were respectful, friendly. There was no, craziness like there is. You can't say that there's not a big difference from the beginning of the 1900s to now. I mean,
wait, but you were saying that in the 20th century, all of this. Wait, Renee, Renee, you were just saying that in the 19th century, in the 1900s, 20th century, all of these people were occultists, and now you're saying that it was amazing back then and today is crazy.
No, I'm not saying it was amazing. I'm saying see the transformation, see the change. Albert Pike, who was the Freemason, was back in the 1880s, and he foretold of the three wars: World War I, World War II, and World War III.
Wait, are you a Freemason?
Exact. No, I'm not a Freemason. No.
Oh, I was excited for a minute. What are you? Are you a Christian?
I'm a Christian, yes.
Okay.
You're referring
I study
to
the occult world.
Yeah, I can
tell.
And that's fine. I think what you're referring to is more of a societal change, Victorian era, where women could only dress.
That's what I meant. Yes.
Yeah, I think
not all the way back to Victorian, but yeah.
I think fundamentalist Christianity is as strong now as it's ever been. I mean, my God, we've seen it in the whole last 4 years, and and the Christian nationalism and the rise of that, where this alt-right group. I mean, you can't divorce the white supremacists from the Christian nationalists. They're in lockstep now.
Oh no.
And that's becoming more prevalent. That's becoming more prevalent, not less prevalent. The ideology that Christianity is being shut down and they're taking Bibles away and closing churches, that's bullshit. That ain't happening. They have more influence now in the government, and you can't even take a vow of public office without putting your hand on a Bible. You can. It's not a law, but no one does it. And they have a national prayer breakfast. I mean, this stuff is as prevalent as it's ever been. The separation of church and state is just not happening as it should. So we've got Christianity as strong and prevalent in this country anyway as it's ever been. Now people dress differently and they wear hip clothes to church, but that's just Victorian societal changes that have happened. Not so much that Christianity has
the
gone away.
Freemasons also, they say that they're Christians. Many groups can call themselves Christians to pretty much corrupt Christianity. Those ones with the big old stadiums and that have more plastic surgery than anything, and go and hollering and making people faint, and that.
You don't think they're Christians?
That's not the Christianity from the Bible. That's their own.
They think it is. They think it is.
No,
yeah, how would we know? How would we know the difference?
How do we know who a true Christian trademark is?
Yeah, because a Christian doesn't ask for money and wealth like that. They don't look the fakeness. They don't go into celebrity mode and have to drive the biggest, fattest cars and have the nicest houses. They don't need that. That's not necessary. That is not what they desire. All they desire is
Renee. Yeah. You are advocating, from my understanding, of Christianity being the predominant culture. You don't think that counts as a power grab?
Well,
it's the same desire to be the biggest and the best, just in a different way. So how do we know who's who, right? Like say Joel Osteen calls in and says Renee isn't a real Christian, and now Renee says Joel isn't a real Christian. How do we know who's right?
Well, you should go by their actions, by how they talk. Are they selfish? Are they self-involved? Are they not talking about God? Are they not talking about the love and kindness of trying to save people, of trying to just bring love to the world? Or are they talking about their own their self needs and money? I want this check. I want this check. Or worry about you. Don't worry about God. God wants you to be happy. Worry about yourself. This is all self-narcissistic. I mean, we already have enough of that in this society.
I agree. Renee, you're the one saying that everyone who disagrees with you is influenced by the devil. You don't think that's a little self-involved?
You'll be surprised. You don't think people want fame and money and they won't do anything for it?
That's not the point here. Okay, Renee,
we hear all the time that
I am going to. Sorry, go ahead, Dave. You get to close this out.
Well, there's not. I mean, the problem is we hear from one group of Christians that everyone else besides the way they do it is not a true Christian, and we hear from another group of Christians that this other group is not doing it right, and they all point to the Bible as their source. They just point to different verses from the Bible. You can make the Bible say anything you want it to, because Joel Osteen and Paula White and all of these people who claim to be Christians will point to certain scriptures that they're living out. You're going to say you've got certain scriptures that you're living out, and every one of these groups points to the other one and says, you're not doing it right. You're not a true Christian. Only we are true Christians. And I've been hearing that my whole life.
I don't say that I'm a true Christian I'm just saying you should see by the actions. It's not if one's to judge. Nobody. That's the thing too. A true Christian in the Bible, it literally says, "Do not judge, for you are not perfect yourself."
Renee, you just said that everyone is lying because of you called in here to judge everybody who was teaching Nietzsche in this school.
You can tell the difference.
No, I'm not saying.
You think Donald Trump's a Christian?
You can tell the difference on how they act and how they perceive themselves.
We're gonna move on.
How can I tell a true Christian?
Yeah, Renee, we're going to move on for right now. You are welcome to call back next week. I know Eric, my co-host, would love to talk with you. Okay?
Thank you, Renee.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye.
All I know,
Wow.
all I know is Donald Trump's the best Christian I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
The way he holds the Bible, I mean, you can't make that shit up.
Just bigly, like just the best. All the people are saying it.
Everyone's saying I'm the bigliest Christian.
Okay, but like,
I don't know.
Can we sit back and appreciate for one moment the fact that she calls in to say that everybody who disagrees with her is influenced by satanic lies, and then says you can't judge. Christians don't judge others.
Yeah, the cognitive dissonance in that is just stunning.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to beat myself up for how I handled that particular call. I'm going to watch it over and over again and just like.
You were fine. You were fine.
I was so happy though. I was so excited. I love that kind of call.
Yeah.
Even if I do make an ass out of myself.
No, you didn't.
All right. Let's talk to Arden in Canada. Arden, welcome to the show. You're live with me and Dave. How can we help you today?
Well, I've been reading through a lot of the morality arguments from the Christianity side and the skeptic side.
Okay.
And I'm looking to talk to some other people about it because that's probably better than just myself.
Perfect. Well, we're here for it. What's you got?
Arden.
Hey, so what I've been looking at is I took a look at nihilism and its forms.
Okay.
And I compared it to kind of Sam Harris's well-being moral landscape philosophy. And it seems that if you were to do anything to try and have life survive, you would need a subjective morality that wouldn't just be for humans, but would go for the smallest life form and adapt itself, randomly change, and could do things that would be unconscionable to a human life form, but you would have to do as a smaller life form. So I'm kind of wondering if there's any kind of limits of subjectivism and morality that might stop that at like a small scale.
V, you take the lead on that because I'm not sure I even understand that.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a guess here, but if I'm off at all or you're wandering away, let me know, Arden, and we'll come right back. I have not read all of Sam Harris's works on morality and all of that, but I am probably of the mindset that subjective morality is more likely than any kind of objective, unless again we agree on said objective. And in this case, I would say that it's well-being of you and your tribe, your group, your community. Can you walk me through a little bit more about what you're talking about in terms of like smaller life forms? Where's that coming in from?
Yeah. So I'm not saying that the well-being is what you should be doing for, but I'm saying that there are certain small things that would explain why life has gone the way it is. So, for instance, things in nature may be using smaller portions of a subjective morality. We may just not see it, but you have things like dolphin infanticide, where dolphins kill baby dolphins to try to improve their chance of reproducing. Certain species kill themselves off when they mate. And that's what you would expect if you had this giant planet, which was basically a thunderdome of life forms competing against one another.
Yeah.
And a objective morality probably wouldn't be very useful, at least, until an advanced enough life forms was decided that, there is some utility to a objective morality, which is why you would see why religions tend to claim that a God would give us a definitive standard, because it's easier for people to accept that.
Right.
And
Okay, so you're asking where that deviation is between human morality and what we see in other species that are maybe not adhering to that well-being standard?
I wouldn't even say it's a well-being standard, because you could struggle in a negative direction. Things like suicide are better explained in a subjective reality than in a moral objective.
Well, I think the key here is that we are at this weird place that, for all we know, we alone inhabit as humans, where we have enough of a developed consciousness that we can think about ourselves, right? We can get meta about everything. And that causes the ideas of morality, right? The reason it is so difficult to get a handle on and write down in like 10 rules, say, is because we are not given it from somewhere else. We are observing our own animal selves and collectively trying to use this accidental consciousness that we have access to figure out how to do the best we can for as many of us as we can, because we discovered that makes us more likely to succeed at, surviving and passing on our genes. So I think the key there is that it could very well be that if other groups of animals, other species did have that higher level consciousness, they would also have a sense of morality. And it could very well be that, some of them do, and we just don't know about it, right? Elephants have rituals and what is considered to be the appropriate actions to take in certain situations, right? That could be a kind of proto-morality. I think that I don't know. I guess my question is, where does this end up? Is there an argument for or against a certain kind of morality here?
And I think that morality, when we're talking about the animal kingdom, may be the wrong word. I think we've observed in nature and in animals empathy and compassion, and those kind of emotions. We see animals have emotions, but we talk about how they treat one another and even their own species and their own selves. That's instinctive, that's nature, and I don't know that we can attach the word morality to that. Where that's just my own thoughts. I've learned a long time ago not to try to speak authoritatively on stuff I have no idea what I'm talking about, because I end up sounding like an idiot. But my own understanding of this and my thoughts along these lines when we're talking about morality is, as V touched on, we're the only species that we know of that can think in terms of, is that a moral act? Is that not a moral act? Is that something that, so we attach moral implications to things we do and say. And where we got in trouble, I think, as a species, if you will, is trying to attach a deity to the moral framework within which we live. And that's where, we've had these arguments on and on about objective morality, and Christians asserting that you can't have any morality without God, and God ordained a certain set of morals. And I've had conversations, as well as all of us have, with theists who maintain that God is the one that designed morality and he's the lawgiver and blah, 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 blah. And all you have to do is take a peek at the 10 Commandments and realize how much bullshit that is. And as we've evolved and as we've come to understand, for instance, that it's not okay to own one another, then we realize that God didn't even figure that out in the Old Testament. So, we go down that road really fast, and then you start talking about what slavery is and what it's not. And oh my God, that gets off the rails really fast. But in terms of morality and how we look at nature, I wouldn't even pretend to understand that. I'm not a biologist or any of those things, but I see nature just has its own rules. And I don't think we're capable of even trying to understand, much less attach some kind of a judgment on whether those rules are moral or not. Not that you're doing that. I'm just thinking, how do we
against that?
Yeah. I think that's kind of crazy to even think that we should say, look at, those dolphins shouldn't do that. Shame on them. How the hell do we know?
I would say that the idea being that if you use subjective morality, you can argue all the way back to just before consciousness, and also that we are not ourselves. What we think of as morality is actually just a sufficient variation of what nature is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why, like one of the most common things you hear in all the debates is like you're waiting for like the Hitler, the Stalin, the Mao card to drop.
Right.
I don't know if you've heard that when Dr. Craig said he couldn't imagine a reality where what Hitler did was good. But then, of course, you say, well, you seem to have this interesting argument about it's expunging the Amalekites in the Bible. Like it seems that was a pretty subjectively given command, and you can keep going back. One thing is, I said, if you go through the tape of what happened in history, you can go and see every possible claimed event and see it for what it actually is. When do your claims likely deteriorate? So if you have a subjective morality that says, well, you know what, as existence was developing and it had this most minimal framework that, didn't differentiate between right and wrong. It just did what it thought it should do, regardless of the consequences. That will probably hold up better than any divine claim ever could. Because I think it's like the moment you make a divine claim, you're immediately saying, okay, that's the best I got.
Right. Well, I think we're all in agreement there. I think
yeah.
the question just becomes then, this is not a comfortable topic for a lot of people, right? The idea that there is subjective morality, the idea that it comes primarily from our biology and the way our brains are structured, it's very uncomfortable for people because it's very comforting to be able to divvy everything up into, good and bad, black and white, all of that. So I think this is an awesome conversation, Arden. Thank you for calling in. If you come across a theist who, makes you think about something new, it happens.
Yeah.
Give us a call back. Let us know how you're doing. Okay.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Arden.
Thank you. Bye.
I know why we're getting all these calls from the out west. It's earlier there and it's not Super Bowl time yet.
There you go.
Yeah. That's maybe it. Of course, Canada could be east too. I don't know where he is.
All right. We've got a Texas caller. So let's go to Jake. Oh, actually, before we do that, I forgot to thank the patrons.
Oh yeah, it's Patreon
so
time.
I'm going to do that first, even though it's a little bit past 2/3 of the way through the episode. Oh, Eric's going to kill me. I always give him so much shit for forgetting, and then I forgot. All right. Thank you, Eric Tweet, Desert Heathen, Bethany P, Ward Knipling, and Balaam's Donkey. And honorary mention, as always, goes to Dingleberry Jackson. Without people like you, we would not be able to do what we do. We would not be able to fund all of the amazing stuff that we're able to do. We sent Black non-believers on a cruise for their 10th anniversary, which was amazing. A cruise? No, not a cruise, a conference. And we are doing things like feeding the homeless out here in Austin. Because of COVID, it's been getting really bad out here, but we're able to, help where we can. And yeah, just making sure that people who call in get someone to talk to. And then also just want to shout out Recovering from Religion. Ethan Michael did an awesome fundraiser the other day. And because of our ability to participate in that, we ended up raising over $5,000 for them, which was awesome. So thank you so much if you gave to that, if you gave today, if you are a recurring patron, whatever level you pledge at. We appreciate you. We couldn't do this without you.
Amen.
Oh, that word though.
I know.
Sometimes nothing else works. You got to do it.
Hey, woman.
Oh, right. Oh, gosh. That was so cringy. When that happened, I was like, "Oh no!"
you had a visceral reaction to that, V.
That was
my God, that was funny. That was worth just seeing your reaction.
All right, we've got 2 more callers, so let's get through them and then close out the show and hop over to Discord.
Okay.
Jake in Texas, welcome to the show. You're live with V and Dave. How can we help you today?
Howdy, Dave. Howdy, V. Thank you, too, for everything you do, everybody at the ACA included.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling in.
I'm a non-believer. Yeah, I'm a non-believer. My wife's a non-believer. We've been that way for a while. She's still on the deconversion fizzle. My main reason for calling is her her mother suffered a bad spinal injury a few years ago.
Okay.
And she no longer can do much of anything for herself. I mean, she could still get around, but she can't work. She can't, she's helpless. So we all moved her in, and we've been taking care of her.
Mm-hmm.
She used to be a very bright and very bubbly woman. But after she became a Christian, she completely changed.
Mm-hmm.
I know that religion can make a lot of people happier and make them a better person, but it seemed to do the opposite for her. She became very racist, very bitter, very hateful. She no longer considers people, like, she won't even look at a Muslim person.
Mm.
I mean, it's, she calls even her best friends that used to be, lesbians, she calls them disgusting. Best friends that she grew up with.
Mm.
So on the flip side, she also doesn't take much of anything seriously. She considers Kenneth Copeland's word law. She doesn't think coronavirus she thinks it's a satanic conspiracy. She thinks that vaccinations are the mark of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my wife are kind of watching her fall apart and cry every day. And really her life has just been getting worse and worse. And that's turning her more and more to God, which has just been an endless feedback loop.
Yeah.
And it's been really hard for us, and we don't really know how to handle it.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely terrible. Not only because she must be in so much mental and sounds like even physical pain, but now this is something that you guys have to watch happen and don't really, I'm assuming you have taken her in. And so this is something that is just in your life now, right?
Absolutely.
I have a question, Jake. You said before she was a Christian, she was pleasant. Did she become a Christian recently? What's the history there?
Okay, so I guess she's always had an underlying belief. It's always kind of been there. Her whole family is there. However, she kind of thought that she was falling away and wanted to be born again. So she kind of went through that whole therapy and conversion and everything.
Gotcha. And how recent was that?
I'd say that happened about maybe 4.5 years ago. It was long before before that happened to her.
Okay. So how long has she been with you guys?
About 2.5 years.
Okay. Where's she getting her information? Does she watch a lot of? It sounds like, what I'm thinking of is a documentary called "The Brainwashing of My Father" that you should see. Okay, it sounds like you're describing exactly that, and what they do. You might want to rewatch it again. And I'm not suggesting any nefarious activity here, but they cut off those sources from her father, Jen Senko, and cut off. It told him the radio was broken. We couldn't get the channel on Fox. Fox wouldn't come into the house anymore. They just basically cut off his sources of misinformation, and he changed back into the kind and gentle person that they once knew. It sounds like your mom has been feeding at the trough of this right-wing QAnon nonsense that has turned a lot of people into crazies. And I don't know if you can, or if it was me, I'm just thinking I would try my best to cut her off from those sources. To even, I don't know, Mom, the internet's not working. I don't know what happened. I don't know how you do it, but it sounds to me like that's what's happening here. She's just getting a steady diet of that stuff, which makes it makes people crazy. It makes people believe the most crazy and lunatic fringe ideas. Is that possible? Is that what's happening?
That's absolutely nail on the head, but I've got to give you the kicker. Her mom is actually a minister.
Okay.
And that would be my wife's grandmother.
Okay.
Is actually a minister, and she is even worse off than she is now. Very, very. She thinks the entire coronavirus is a hoax.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting off on that tangent. But,
Well, they sound like QAnon.
we wanted-
They sound like dyed in the wool QAnon, and
Yeah.
that's what's going on in the world around us. And I've met some. I've talked to them. People who are in every other way rational and intelligent human beings have gone down these rabbit holes of conspiracy, and it's completely derailed them.
Yeah.
And it's horrible. And the only way I know, and there's some resources out there. I've been seeing some YouTube. I haven't seen it myself, but some reference, maybe V, but some YouTube people and books being written about how to deal with QAnon, the best way to approach them, and the best way to help them come, because you're dealing with someone who's enmeshed in a cult.
Yeah.
And we know that you can't just confront a cult member and say, hey, you're an idiot, your ideas are stupid. You've got to approach it a different way, or they'll put up defenses that you can't get past. And so maybe you can find some of those resources and begin to appeal to them to come back to reason. What do you think, V? Do you know some of those sources?
Not off the top of my head, but I agree to treat this less as just a religious thing. I know that before you kind of drew that. Well, I know religion can make some people's lives better, and it hasn't done that with my mom, or it sounds like your grandmother-in-law either. I would caution this is more cult-like. This is a cult.
This is a cult. It's a cult.
This is not just religion. This is bigger than that, and much more damaging in many ways. My thought here too is, does your mom get therapy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but because of the coronavirus and things like that, she hasn't really been able to do that very well.
Okay. I would highly recommend trying to find somebody who will give the therapy online, virtual visits, because a lot of the instinct, a lot of the drive to find solace in these conspiracy theories, in these cults, is that reach out for help, is that reach out for support in a very unhealthy way from an unhealthy place. So hopefully, hey, Dave, do you know of any resources for people who might want to get a secular therapist involved in things?
Well, V, yes, I do, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Recovering from Religion has a cousin there, the Secular Therapy Project, that sprang forth out of Recovering from Religion. So if you look them up, they can refer you to someone. And I'm sure most of the therapists, in fact, probably all of them, are doing virtual visits now. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely tag into that resource, and you'll find someone that can help in a real way.
Yeah. Having somebody who is a secular therapist who will hold that line and not be too forgiving or gloss over the harm that the religious and cult-like conspiracies are doing is very important. And I think would be, in addition to, of course, maybe setting up those parental controls where you can, would be a good next step. But we are almost at the end of the episode. Jake, I'm sorry you're going through this, man. This sounds...
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jake. I know it's tough.
Do I have time for one more quick question?
Super quick. What can we help you with?
How could you get past a see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil barrier, where she won't even touch it? She won't even touch a secular therapist.
Don't tell her it's secular.
Yeah.
Say, hey, I know you wanted a therapist. I know that COVID's getting in the way of that. I found someone for you. And, here's somebody who will be able to help and talk through stuff with you. You don't need her to know. That doesn't necessarily even have to enter into the conversation.
Thank you guys so much. You're wonderful.
Thank you
Jake,
so much.
good luck, buddy.
Good luck.
Hey.
Woof. That's
this QAnon stuff is just batshit fucking crazy. I'm so...
It's so scary. It is really very, very heartbreaking to see family just kind of fall down that hole and not be able to climb back out.
Yeah, it's just insane.
It really, really is. All right, we've got one more caller, Noah. Welcome to the show. You're wrapping us up. You are live with V and Dave. How can we help you today?
Hey, how are you guys? I'm a little starstruck, so I'll try to get to the point. If it's no big deal, could I make a quick shout out to my wife?
Absolutely, go for it.
Hey, Yasmin, you know who I am, and I just want the whole world to know that I love you, and I appreciate everything you've done for me.
That's sweet.
That's as happy as I'll get.
A little pre-Valentine's greeting. That's great.
That's adorable. I love it. All right, Noah, what can we help you with today?
Yes, actually, real quick, it was actually Noel. Noah's my brother-in-law. Anyway, my whole point was that I've had this train of thought, and I never really bought into Christianity. I think I used to be spiritual or religious. I was really young when I decided to put all that away.
Mm-hmm.
But along that journey, Christianity just kind of became less and less likely in my head the more informed I became.
Mm-hmm.
And I reached this point where I was thinking, if there was ever a straw that broke the camel's back, Genesis should have been it. My line of thinking was that if Genesis isn't a literal account and that didn't actually happen, then there's really, in my opinion anyway, there's no foundation for the rest of Christianity's mythos. And from where I sit, that should really be the last nail in the coffin. And obviously it's not for most people. So I was just wondering what you and Dave thought about that. Should Genesis kind of like be the door closer? Because I don't see the point in the rest of it if Genesis isn't real.
Yeah, I think that's the reason you see people like Ken Ham and Kent Hovind going at it so hard, is because they understand that. They understand that if Genesis is not accurate, if it's not factual, if that's not what actually happened, then the entire rest of their mythology does fall apart. I know that it wasn't necessarily the biggest nail in the coffin for me, but it certainly was one of them. And I know many atheists who deconverted after realizing that they had been lied to about evolution, about creation, about the Big Bang, all of that. So I do think that for a lot of people, it actually is that nail in the coffin. The people who are able to get around that have this very tricky way of getting themselves into this space where they're okay accepting metaphor, right? And so if you say, oh, well, Genesis is metaphorical or holds deeper meaning or tells us truths that don't actually, have a scientific counterpart, kind of like our first caller was saying, oh, it's just a method of understanding the world, then it's very easy to take that and apply that to, Jesus saying, I am, the second Adam and Adam and Eve caused the first sin, and Jesus coming to save that. Of course, if there's no actual Adam and Eve, that makes it more complicated. But if Adam and Eve is a metaphor for just people being bad in general, then you've effectively skirted that. So it really does depend on how metaphorical you're comfortable getting as a theist, and how much cognitive dissonance you're comfortable entertaining up there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It doesn't really...
Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, no, go ahead, Dave.
I was thinking along the same lines that the answers in Genesis people, they cling to that. The young earth creationists cling to that, because if you take Adam and Eve out of the equation, if you take the Garden of Eden out of the equation, if you take original sin out of the equation, then you've got problems with the whole rest of the story. You've got problems with the whole salvation message altogether. I've been doing some work on a presentation I'm going to do next month for Recovering from Religion, their chat room, about sin. They asked me to do a thing on sin, and I'm calling it the fallacy of sin, because as a secular person, I don't use that word. That's a religious word.
Mm-hmm.
It's a religious construct. It's a religious construct. Do people do wrong things? Yeah. Is there good and bad? Are there things that we wish we hadn't done? Yeah, but it's not a sin, because sin brings a deity into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
When it's just me and you talking, and I raise my voice and I yell when I shouldn't have, I say to you, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have acted that way. I'll do better next time, I hope. But I didn't sin. That's a God thing. And I didn't offend some God with me yelling or saying fuck. That's ridiculous. And so and so when we take Adam and Eve out of the equation and we look at humanity as a whole and individuals living lives doing the best we can, well, if there's no original sin, if we can't tell children that you're born as a sinner and you've got to ask Jesus in your heart to be born again and to be saved, if we take all of that away, we can't sell the gospel message to them. We can't sell the gospel message to anyone because there's no problem that has to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sin that has to be forgiven. So even if you take Adam and Eve and make it metaphorical, and you take the Garden of Eden and make it metaphorical, you've done away with original sin. You've done away with the fall of man, and mankind is not then born guilty. And then you don't need a savior for shit. And so what did Jesus do? He just came and got himself in trouble with the Romans and got himself killed. So the whole thing falls apart. And so, yeah, the problem should have stopped with Genesis. If you deconstruct Genesis, you deconstruct the whole story.
Yeah, see, I don't even think taking Genesis metaphorically saves Christianity.
No, it doesn't.
Because
it doesn't solve the problem.
Then God only metaphorically created the universe, and he only metaphorically created man in his own image, and we only metaphorically somehow, contrary to his perfect knowledge and power, managed to, usurp his divine plan, and I just I don't even see how taking it metaphorically saves it in any way.
It doesn't solve anything.
Like it's dead in the water.
Yeah, it's a big
God is metaphorically there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and if we want to talk about God in the metaphorical sense, okay, but let's not confuse that with actually existing.
Yeah.
Noel, thank you so much for calling in. We are going to be wrapping up, but you're absolutely right. If Genesis is not a factor, that is a problem.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you guys for taking my call, and good luck and stay healthy.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Noel.
You too. All right. We are out of callers. Oh my gosh. That flew by. Dave, thank you so much for being part of the show. Thank you for hosting with me. I hope you had fun. I know I did.
Oh, yeah. It's a blast. You're the best, V.
Oh my gosh. No, you.
Yeah. No, you. Oh, stop it.
You know who's actually the best, though? Is
Eric.
the crew of ours. Can we go to the crew cam real quick?
Oh, look at these guys.
Look at all those sweet faces. Look at the dog.
Somebody wake the cat up.
Oh, the sweets.
Crew cat cam. Look at the cats and dogs.
I love all of the pets. We have such awesome people on that side of things.
Yeah, they really are awesome.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Dave, do you want to throw up some love rings, or as we're calling them today, rainbow void bubbles?
Rainbow void bubbles. I don't know what. What?
All right, with me. Ready?
1,
3, 2, 1. Woo! Love it.
I almost forgot that part. Thanks.
I wrote it down. I was like, I'm
Good
calling
job.
them rainbow void bubbles if it kills me.
No, I think that's a thing.
All right. So as we've been doing for the entirety of last year, pretty much, we want to take some time first to thank first responders, to thank healthcare workers, to thank essential workers who are keeping this country up and running during COVID. Regardless of what you believe or do not believe, we support you, we thank you, and we literally couldn't do this without you. So thank you, and continue to stay safe. For everybody who loves one of the people who are putting themselves out there, or is just, a decent fucking human being, wear a mask, wash your hands, don't eat
Not
out.
that hard.
It's
God.
really not difficult. Let's get this country up and running again. Let's get things open. Let's get this under control. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Cool. Now, for those of you who don't believe, for those of you who are like us and either left a faith tradition or never was raised in one to begin with, this is your community. We want you here. We appreciate you. We want to make this a place where you can come and share your ideas and get feedback and grow your critical thinking skills. If you want to join us later, we are going to be on the Discord after this for about 10-15 minutes. We would love to see you there. And for those of you who do believe, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. See you.